If 80% of the sentences in your first-person novel start with I, your readers are gonna revolt. Is your first-person narrator reading their diary to the audience? Are all your sentences starting with I, or is your protagonist psychic somehow knowing what all the other characters are thinking? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you might want to stick around. If you're new here, my name is Brianna and I post writing videos every week on world building, character development, and other writing-related things. I also sell cheap digital and printer-friendly writing workbooks on my Etsy shop, so if you're interested, hit subscribe and feel free to follow me on Threads and Instagram. All links are in the description below. I'm just gonna preface this video with an apology. The neighbors across the street from me are having their shingles redone, and this is the only time that I can film. If some of those sounds make it into the video, just bear with me. Today we're diving into first-person narration mistakes that new writers typically make. I made these mistakes when I started writing, and I've seen them constantly in manuscripts that I've reviewed. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you what's wrong and how to fix it. Before we jump into the common mistakes, let's clarify what narrative perspective is. Also called point of view or POV, narrative perspective is simply who's telling your story. It's the lens through which your reader experiences the entire story. Every sense, every thought, every emotion. There are three main types of point of view. First-person perspective says, I walked into the room. It's where the narrator is a character in your story, usually the protagonist, and uses pronouns like I, we, us. Everything is filtered through this character's direct experience. Second person says you walk into the room. This is a unique perspective that isn't often used, and it's a trickier perspective to write in. It addresses the reader directly by making them a character in the story. And if you're able to pull this off, it can be a powerful technique. The Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin mixes second and third person perspective, and it's fantastic. Now, third person says she walked into the room and uses pronouns like she, he, or they. This style also branches out into three different flavors. Third person limited, which follows one character at a time and offers a closer lens into their perspective without being fully inside their head. Third person multiple, which follows several characters. And third person omniscient, which is an all-knowing narrator who can access anyone's thoughts. Which I personally think is a great way to incorporate the unreliable narrator trope, but that's something we can talk about in a later video. Each point of view creates a different relationship between the reader and your story. So there's no best perspective, it's just what works for the story you're telling and reader preference. So what exactly is first-person narration? It's when a character within your story, usually the protagonist, tells their own story using their voice. The goal of first-person narration is intimacy, because it pulls readers directly into your narrator's mind and creates that immediate connection. Readers experience the same story exactly as they do, with the same limitations, biases, gaps in knowledge, and sensory experiences. First-person should be a full-body experience. We're not just seeing through the narrator's eyes, we're feeling, tasting, smelling, and hearing what they do. In first-person, we inhabit the character completely. And this is why first person works best when you want your reader to deeply connect with your protagonist. Your character has a distinctive voice or worldview. You're telling a story about personal journey or transformation. You want to play with reliable narration. You need to restrict information to what only one character knows, which is especially helpful if you want to throw in a few twists later on. Or your character experiences the world in a unique way that can only be conveyed through first person narration. This level of immersion that first person has is especially powerful for fantasy and sci-fi world building. When you're putting readers into an unfamiliar world, whether it's a magic school, an alien planet, or a dragon kingdom, experiencing this through all five senses can really help them construct the reality in their mind. The strangeness becomes familiar when we can feel the texture of the books in this world, smell the metallic qualities of the spaceship's air, or taste nutmeg in a local's food. Now let's talk about the common mistakes I've seen new writers make with first-person perspective. The most obvious signal of weak first-person writing is starting almost every sentence with I. When you have so much consistent repetition, it creates a boring and monotonous rhythm that's really hard to get through. The best way to fix this is by varying your sentence structure. Start with adverbs, prepositional phrases, or direct observations about the environment. Your character doesn't have to announce every action they take. So instead of, I walked to the store, I saw my friend leaving with her hands full of bags, I smiled and waved at her. You can try, the store was only 2 blocks away. Near the entrance, my friend appeared, shopping bags in hand. A wave and a smile later, we were catching up like no time had passed. This is by no means a perfectly executed narration, it's just something that I drafted as an example, but this one feels more dynamic. The focus remains on the character's experience without constantly announcing their presence. The second mistake is making your first-person narrator somehow a mind reader. They seem to know exactly what other characters are thinking or feeling, and it breaks the fundamental limitation of this perspective. You might as well change it to an omniscient narrator. Your narrator should only be able to observe external cues and make educated guesses about another's internal state. They should interpret body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and they might get it wrong. They might base huge plot decisions on incorrect assumptions, and that's okay. That's the limitation of first person, but it's also what makes the cause and effect so powerful, because the reader was also operating under the same incorrect assumptions and should be equally surprised when they find out otherwise. So instead of saying, Marcus was relieved when I volunteered for the presentation, he hated public speaking and was grateful I'd saved him from embarrassment. You can try. As I raised my hand to volunteer for the presentation, Marcus's shoulders visibly dropped. He shot a quick smile and nodded my way before looking forward, relaxing in his seat. I couldn't let the poor guy suffer, not after catching him miserably practicing speeches in the bathroom yesterday. The reader still understands that Marcus was nervous about the presentation, but through observations that the narrator could actually make. I'll also note that this particular limitation obviously depends on the character who's narrating. If they have the ability to read minds, or there's some other story element that allows them to understand things beyond regular perception, then that's different, and you'll need to figure out their observational boundaries and work within those. Maybe your narrator can sense emotions and could feel the anxiety radiating off of Marcus. The third mistake is turning the narration into a chronological recounting of events, kind of like an autobiography. First I did this, and I did that. And usually this happens when the writer includes very mundane details that aren't relevant to the story itself. So to fix it, you want to focus on the significant moments and emotional beats, not the mundane. Skip the boring parts where they check the time in the morning for no relevant reason or get out of bed. I can't tell you how many times I read a book that opens with the character waking up, getting out of bed, and walking down the stairs to the kitchen to get breakfast. Let's say your narrator is late for work. Instead of saying, I woke up groggy and hungover to see 5 missed alarm notifications on my phone. I shot out of bed haphazardly, brushing my teeth and hair as I pulled on a clean outfit. I drove to work while scarfing down a slice of buttered toast. When I pulled into the parking lot, Sarah was already there fuming next to my designated spot. Try to pare it down a bit by focusing on the more immediate moment. When I pulled into the office parking lot 30 minutes late, groggy and hungover, Sarah was already there fuming next to my designated spot. This one isn't perfect, but it's short, simple, and sets the scene without bloating it with unnecessary detail. Unless those morning rituals are relevant to your plot, like maybe you're cementing the fact of the narrator's mundane life before they're suddenly thrown into chaos. Like Arthur Dent from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If they're not something like that, then summarize it or skip it entirely. Mistake number 4 is making your narrator overly self-aware. This is when your character describes themselves in unnatural ways, like staring into mirrors to detail their appearance or analyzing their personality traits like they're on a dating profile. You can fix this by revealing character traits through actions, decisions, and how they perceive the world, not through explicit self-description. So instead of writing, I took a few deep breaths to calm myself down and looked in the mirror at my long blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. I've always been stubborn and quick to anger, but I feel like it's warranted in this case. Instead of that, try saying, their hairbrush snagged once again in that same stupid tangled section. With a curse, I tossed it across the room, watching with instant regret as it smacked against a wall. A strand of long blonde hair stuck to the small dent left by the impact. This shows the character's trait in action rather than telling the reader directly. This is the kind of thing you should let your reader figure out rather than just stating it. Because usually what happens is the character is stated as hot-headed, but then never actually makes rash decisions in moments of anger, or shouts at someone who's done them wrong, or couldn't keep their mouth shut when they needed to because they were mad. If your character is hot-headed, then their voice and actions should incorporate that, especially if you're writing it in a first-person narration. Their narrative voice should reflect that hot-headedness. Mistake number 5 is when your narrator only talks about what they see and neglects the other senses. Real people experience the world through their whole being, not just vision. To fix this, just make your narrator a fully sensory being. Incorporate descriptors for touch, smell, taste, and sound into your imagery, not just what your character sees. So instead of saying, I walked into the bakery, the cakes looked delicious in the display case, the baker smiled at me. You can try, the bakery smelled of warm vanilla, cinnamon, and espresso that made my stomach tighten and growl. The glass display case was cool against my fingertips as I pointed to my favorite pistachio and hazelnut turnover. The baker smiled, grabbing one and placing it inside a crinkly paper bag before handing it to me. This version is much more tactile than the first one. Including more than one of the senses in a scene pulls your reader directly into your character's body for that moment. This is especially crucial in sci-fi, fantasy, or romantasy. When you're building a world that doesn't exist, sensory detail is your strongest way to make it feel real. Readers have never seen a dragon, but they can imagine the sulfur smell of its breath, or the heat radiating from its scales. Having these sensory details helps ground your readers into your world, making it feel tangible and therefore believable. Now, you don't want to overdo this. Don't invoke all 5 senses in every scene. Sometimes all you need to say is, I stopped by the bakery because I was craving a pistachio and hazelnut turnover, because that scene is relevant but not as important as the subsequent one. But if you really want to ground your reader in a specific moment in your story, sense is one of your greatest tools. There's a passage I want to read that I think is a great example of this. It's from A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, specifically the scene where the narrator is being struck with a bat for breaking one of his glasses at school. Stefan closed his eyes and held out in the air his trembling hand with the palm upwards. He felt the prefect of studies touch touch it for a moment at the fingers to straighten it, and then the swish of the sleeve of the soutane as the panty bat was lifted to strike. A hot, burning, stinging, tingling blow like the loud crack of a broken stick made his trembling hand crumple together like a leaf in the fire. And at the sound and the pain, scalding tears were driven into his eyes. His whole body was shaking with fright. His arm was shaking, and his crumpled, burning, livid hand shook like a loose leaf in the air. A cry sprang to his lips, a prayer to be let off. But though the tears scalded his eyes and his limbs quivered with pain and fright, he held back the hot tears and the cry that scalded his throat. Now, James Joyce does repeat the same descriptors like scalding in this passage, but it's because the narrator at this time is a young boy who is experiencing this immeasurable amount of pain. So it makes sense that his pain-muddled brain is repeating the same words over and over. But not only that, this scene of being struck is painfully drawn out, for good reason. We as the readers are stuck in this agonizing moment with the narrator feeling what he feels, waiting for this moment to end. But as you end the paragraph and think that it's finally over, the prefix says other hand and launches into another set of strikes. This entire scene lasts for another 2 long paragraphs because it was a fundamental moment for him. In a case like this, you want to invoke as many senses as possible. Mistake number 6 is having an inconsistent voice. For example, your first-person narrator is very casual, typically speaks in a casual tone of voice and dialogue, but then suddenly sounds like a poet or philosopher when describing sunsets. You fix this by doing some prep work beforehand by establishing their vocabulary, education level, and speaking style, and then you maintain it throughout the book. Your teenage character shouldn't suddenly use words like mellifluous, unless it's established that they're a vocabulary enthusiast. So instead of writing as, whatever I said, then looked at the sunset, the ephemeral beauty of the crepuscular light bathed the cerulean waves in amber hues. Instead of saying that, try, whatever I said, then looked at the sunset. It turned the blue waves gold for a moment. Pretty, but it wouldn't change anything. That's a bit more consistent. You want to keep your narrator's voice in line with who they actually are. Unless they're a literary genius pretending to be an everyday person, then you can probably use the first example. So now that you know what mistakes to look out for in your writing, let's look at some fantasy, sci-fi, and romantasy books that do first-person narration really well. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Probably gonna butcher this, but Kavoth's voice is distinct, and the frame narrative of the story within a story uses first-person narration masterfully. The sensory descriptions make the world feel more tangible as well. In Red Rising by Pierce Brown, Darrow's perspective evolves as he infiltrates a different social class, showing his character growth through the narrative style. In Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, Fitz's introspective narration builds a complex world while keeping us firmly in his perspective. It makes sense to write his story in first-person narration because his wit magic gives him unique sensory experiences. In Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, Galaxy's narration incorporates her supernatural ability to see ghosts, which creates a unique narrative experience that only this narrator could offer. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir features a snarky, irreverent first-person voice that perfectly captures the character, with tactical descriptions of necromancy and swordplay that ground the fantastical elements. What makes these examples work is that the narrative voice is inseparable from the character. You couldn't swap these narrators without fundamentally changing the stories. So here are my top tips for writing exceptional first-person narratives. You want to develop a distinct voice. Your narrator's vocabulary, sentence structure, and observations should reflect their personality, background, and emotional state. Don't just show what your character sees, show what they smell, taste, hear, and feel. Each character will notice sensory details depending on their character and backstory. Like a tailor who notices different types of fabric as they go about the world. Embrace biases and limitations in your narrator. They don't know everything, and that's a feature, not a bug. Use their blind spots to create tension, logical twists, and even foreshadowing. First person is also a great way to show internal conflict. Use this perspective to reveal what the narrator says and does, and what they truly think or feel. Filter everything through your character. The way your narrator describes characters and settings tells us about them, not just what they're describing. A baker will notice different details in the kitchen than a soldier would. And read your story aloud. It's not fun, at least for me, but it's one of the best ways to catch inconsistencies and repetitive sentence structures. If you've been struggling with your first-person narrative, I hope these tips help. If you're looking for a more structured approach to making your writing better, check out my writing workbooks in my Etsy shop, linked in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to become a better writer, and if you like this video, you might want to watch this one next. Until the next chapter.